Hello, 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 and welcome to a live panel discussion about the 2023 streaming tech predictions. Welcome here just before Christmas. Great to have you with us. So we're going to look at, well, of course, the tech predictions, but in more detail, we'll have the key issues that will impact content delivery in the next months to come. We're going to start with the fan experience and what impacts the fan experience and how can you overcome some of the challenges. We'll then look at the shift to mobile and viewership. It's getting more and more important. 5G is there. And how does that impact our video content distribution and delivery? Of course, we will have to look at economic uncertainty and the current economic climate, which has been better, let's say, but there are things we can do in content delivery to help you that, and at the same time, contribute to sustainability. Last but not least, size does matter in video, and we have several customers who have the ambition to either go global or at least extend their geographic footprint. So that's the fifth topic, I need to count, that we're gonna address here. My name is Andy Waltenspiel, and I'm excited to be your host and moderator in this session. Normally, I am advising and challenging thought leaders and innovators of our industry to connect the dots, connect people, go the extra mile in innovation, and go to market strategy. Let me introduce you to our two fantastic speakers here, both from Velocix. We have Jim Brickmeier, he's the CEO. Hi, Jim. Good morning.
Hi.
To Atlanta.
Morning.
And we have Sérgio Delgado, product manager in Portugal. Is that correct?
Yep, correct. Hi, everyone. How's it going?
Good afternoon. And me from cold Munich, Germany. Actually started raining. It was white until yesterday, but now it seems no white Christmas here at least.
So sad.
Yeah. Good. A few words of introduction, maybe. And Jim, do you maybe want to start a few words about yourself and also about Velocix, of course?
Sure. So again, Jim Brickmeier, CEO of Velocix, been in the streaming business since 2000, quite some time. About Velocix, if you're not familiar with us, we develop content delivery network software, origin servers, things for cloud DVR and time-shifted TV services, as well as dynamic advertising technology. And we sell our software technology to companies that typically are running revenue-producing video services. And so we're a global company, sell around the world, and we look forward to having this discussion on tech predictions.
Thank you, Jim. And Sérgio.
Hi, my name is Sérgio Delgado. As Andy said, I'm a product manager at Velocix. So I've been also working in the TV industry for more than almost 20 years now. And I mean, at Velocix, I'm a product manager for cloud DVR products, for the recordings manager and origin solutions, and also for the analytics product as well.
Great. Thank you, both of you. We just finished, and we were just a few minutes before, we talked about the World Cup. I mean, it was crazy final, Argentina beating France. If we have anybody from Argentina, well done to our friends in France. Sorry for you this time, but you won last time. It was time for Argentina. But what a game. We saw record viewership. I just saw an article, I think it was New York Times, I saw that crazy viewers, the highest ever final. And I also saw a little news snippet from Velocix that I post here. Velocix reports FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 viewership drives more than twice the traffic demand over paid TV networks. And that was apparently mostly in Latin America and in Europe. But Jim, I mean, was it a guess, or do you have means to measure that? Where does this number come from?
Yeah, so no, we have means to measure it. So not necessarily well known, but Velocix runs a fully managed services organization where we manage and maintain CDNs and origin servers and so on for our customers. So we'll actually operate the CDN systems for them, and we keep track of the health of the systems and make sure that people are ready for major events, so that when we have items like this, which we know are going to drive substantial traffic, that we can safeguard those systems and make sure that they're going to operate exactly as expected when everybody is watching. The worst case scenario, when we saw certain circumstances with some services, OTT services and so on, that were out there and trying to carry the World Cup games, and they ended up having issues. And you don't want to make the news for having an issue during the World Cup. And so we place an extra level of diligence over the World Cup and make sure that we're watching and that we have done the prep work if there's a need to bolster some of those systems in terms of capacity to support the additional demand that's coming through there. And so, yeah, we are able to actually collect data from our customer systems and see the exact traffic and the traffic peaks. And we were, as you mentioned, able to see that there were some differences between some of the regions, which you attribute probably to the where the fan base is, primarily for World Cup, and based on who's having success in the World Cup as well. And so, yeah, it was a little bit, it was decent increase in North America, but when you would see the increases in Latin America and Europe, very substantial. And this was even before the final, which I know the final was a spectacular game, and there was probably even more viewership. So we put this news story out before the final. So definitely a great driver of traffic for the pay TV providers and streamers that carried at the event.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there was some big news, even I think it was in India, where people were, even in the opening game, were really suffering with buffering and nothing moving ahead. I hope that was not the case for any of your customers.
No, we didn't see any events. Usually, I would know, as head of the company, if something's gonna go wrong, you hear about it fast, and it went very smoothly. So that was great that things went well. And yeah, we were commenting the other day because we saw some of the articles when things went wrong, and it was just like pages and pages in Google searches of highlights when particular services had issues. Customers were pretty unhappy, and this is where buying decisions are made, and subscribers elect to stay or leave particular services. And so it's absolutely critical that during these major events, when you have huge scale hitting the platforms, that the systems are stable. And that's achieved by a combination of, number one, you got to have good software tech that could support that kind of scale and simultaneous usage. But beyond that, it's also a matter of making sure that you got a good team involved that can monitor and address things if they do come up, that you can respond effectively and keep things running.
So good team, that was the Q word for Sérgio, I guess. Huh? Sérgio, I mean, from your point, from a product perspective, what are the key challenges in such a huge event like the World Cup? And of course, how do you prepare for it? So how do you overcome the challenges?
Good question. So yeah, one of the most significant challenges is having a well thought capacity managing and planning process and exercise. As the example we're talking about, high budget premium sports like the World Cup. Content is prone to very rapidly increase on the viewership, like very, very quick, right? There's nothing going on, and then suddenly, like 30 minutes before, 15 minutes before, even 5 minutes after it started, it will just peak immediately. So, I mean, correct sizing all the platforms, streaming platforms, prevents, traffic issues as the ones that you said some may have experienced, during these peaks. But we also, we also need to have in mind that, we can't just go, okay, let's overkill in terms of capacity, because that will be costly, right? So we need to find the right balance, to proper dimension the systems, to understand, what's going on with the systems, and for that also we need the inputs of, analytics and the metrics, monitoring the systems to get real-time inputs, whether, how far are we from reaching the system capacity. And then it comes a second part, which is, is your system capable and dynamic and flexible to quickly scale to, if needed, to that demand. And there's where, we believe hybrid cloud CDNs are very important, right? So it's very important technology, for to be more efficiency on this, to guide and to help the capacity planning, and to be able to respond to these bursts outside the normal operations, right? And I know, I don't want to skip ahead. Probably we're gonna talk about sustainability as well. We'll talk about it later. But all these, are challenges that our customers and the industry are pushing us to, you need to help us on this. So these are challenges, this is our concerns, and this is actually what we are observing in the field, and all those metrics that we gather from from usage and from the platforms. That's what we need to use, and that's what we're doing currently, with our customers, with managed services or not. So we're helping our customers, to achieve those goals. The focus has to be on the user experience, and to get the best user experience, this requires careful, activation of technology like cloud caching, advanced request routing algorithms and technology, and also, as I said, precise metrics and inputs and analytics and data to assess, what's the audience experience, and ensure that you're not deviating from your promise and your goals.
Yeah, goals is a good one for the World Cup. So one thing is buffer and scalability. The other thing, also super frustrating, it didn't happen so much in Europe and North America this year because it's winter, but you sit outside in the garden and you hear your neighbor shout goal, where you haven't even seen that there is a penalty. And sometimes we talk about 2-minute delay, depending on which transmission technologies you talk about. So latency is a key topic, and ultra-low latency is something we have touched on in the series of webinars during this year. So Jim, where are we with low latency and ultra-low latency? Is it really becoming a hot topic now?
Yeah, so I think we probably talked about this last year, and it's one of the predictions where we said, ultra low latency is heating up, and we thought that everybody in 2022 was going to deploy ultra low latency. And we, while we have seen, solid progress to put this forward, we still see quite a few operators that have not implemented ultra low latency, and we do see regional differences as well in terms of where there's interest. We see, interestingly, some lower interest in some of our North American customers and higher interest in Europe. But I think as time has gone on, right, there's a recognition that events like the World Cup, right, it's these sports events and news events and things like that are really driving the consumer interest, right? This is what's really driving the usage on the platforms. And so the questions that come up are, how do we improve as a service operator? How do we improve the offering that we have and make sure that in the places where people are actually watching, that that they get the best experience possible? And so ultra low latency is one of those where, I had an experience just recently. It was World Cup. We were over in the UK for a team meeting, and we had people of different nationalities at the table during a World Cup game, and you could see that whatever operator they were watching through did not have ultra low latency enabled, because we would all get texts that said, "Oh, somebody, Portugal, I think it was Portugal scored," and then we would wait, and you would wait for 30 seconds to a minute for the actual visual. Interestingly, it didn't seem to diminish the excitement on the team that we had. They were excited when the text came through, and they were excited when they saw the ultimate score. But it was one of those kinds of items that you did recognize, where oftentimes latency is not an obvious thing. If you don't have, if you're not getting alerts through text or social media, you don't really know that you're not watching the live event. But this was a circumstance where I personally saw it, the impact of it, and so I think it's a thing that we'll definitely see heat up in 23 more with some of the events that are ongoing.
What amount of seconds would you call ultra low latency? Where does it start? Where does it begin? Where does ultra begin and low end?
Well, I think the answer is as quickly as social media tends to work, right? How long does it take to have a tweet come through or something along those lines? Typically, we talk about sub 5 seconds. You may get down to as little as 2 or even lower than that. There's always a balance in the implementation of ultra low latency, because as you reduce latency, you're always potentially introducing some risk of buffering. You're reducing the buffer size, and as a result of that, if there are any kinds of glitches in the network or things like that, you could potentially introduce a streaming quality issue. So it's really important to find the right balance based on the network. And all the other components that are involved in ultra low latency beyond just the CDN and the origin framework. But those are the kinds of timeframes we're talking about. A couple of seconds is usually the target for ultra low latency, and you're not going to get an alert within those 2 seconds that's going to disrupt your viewing experience. Yeah.
Is there a trade-off to be made between the ultra low latency and scalability? A certain extent?
I don't know that that's a direct linkage. There may be an indirect kind of a linkage as you start to grow systems out. Perhaps the complexity of that may increase, but I don't think it's a direct relationship between scale and ultra low latency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So you said you were in a restaurant, people were watching on their mobile. Let's talk about mobile. Great segue. Thank you, Jim. People watch more and more, especially younger generations, on their mobiles, not only on the big screen. It happens on the move. And 5G, of course, is a big topic. All the big telcos trying to find the killer app beyond the speed test.
Yeah.
And what do you think? Is video going to be one of those killer apps for 5G? And what is important to take into account when you think about video streaming over 5G to mobiles?
Sure. Well, there have been some articles out there actually about 5G, and one of the challenges that's seen in the market is that while there's been deep investment in 5G and the 5G networks, that there hasn't really been a lot of demand for the 5G networks, because when you take a look at the kinds of applications that require that level of data, they're few and far between, right? I mean, even video can run over 4G LTE networks, and people get reasonable quality and so on. And so the question is, for 5G, what are those applications that are really going to drive the market forward toward 5G? Of course, we have new devices coming out that are all 5G capable, which helps to drive 5G adoption. But the question is, what is it that really needs that kind of speed and that kind of reduced latency and data capabilities? And I do think that as you start to look at some of the more advanced kinds of video capabilities. You know, number one, you're increasing to 4K and 8K types of content. You've got other types of replacement for wireline services where you're going to potentially be on larger screens, but delivery through mobile connections. And then we look at things like augmented reality and virtual reality and so on, where you've got a lot more data and the quality needs are much higher. That those kinds of things are the things that really drive interest in 5G. So I do think video is like a pretty key component to it. Like today, when you look at the usage of mobile networks, like any network, it really is driven by video, right? Video is the thing that consumes the bulk of the traffic. So the important part here for 5G operators is to figure out, okay, what types of applications and how do we take advantage of this new connection that's really going to drive people to say, hey, I gotta connect through 5G. I'm going to have a much better experience through that. And so that's, one of the things we're focusing on with operators is developing some of those business cases. And then, it's that low latency, right? So in the 5G frameworks, it's all about running applications at the edge of the network, closer to the consumer devices. And so making sure that CDN platforms, which by definition are edge-based applications, that they can run within the platforms known as multi-access edge compute platforms or mobile edge compute. Some people use that acronym, but the idea is to run the CDNs as close as possible to the consumer, so that you can gain the efficiency and really lower that latency from a communication and startup time standpoint.
Okay. Jim mentioned multiple devices getting a 5G connection. Sergio, do you see others? I mean, are we talking about cars? Are we talking about also maybe 5G fixed wireless access? What else is important to take into account when we're talking about 5G?
Video, we see video as enabling all this sort of offers, market offers, and new business. It may not be really new, but maybe new ways to explore them. And there's definitely a growing 5G fixed wireless access market out there, which delivers high-speed broadband to suburban and rural areas where supporting high bandwidth connections, like using fiber, for example. I mean, it's prohibitively expensive. It's too expensive to lay fiber, but you have more. I mean, it's expensive to maintain, right? We can't forget about the maintenance of that. So that is one of the use cases that can be leveraged, on 5G. Obviously, video can be the give the impulsion, the motivation for such contracts and such business to evolve. Another thing is, I mean, people are continuously getting more and more mobile, right? People moving around everywhere. I mean, working, home working, home office, and offshores. I mean, this is becoming the reality, right? It's not even, we don't even question that anymore. And then the more that happens, on like people renting houses everywhere, and the rental business, I mean, in different parts of the world, and it's becoming challenging for governments, for people who live in the in the main cities and main centers, because a lot of people is coming in. We do suffer that here in Portugal, and I know such of those cases. That's another potential segment for 5G fixed wireless access. Because those people will also demand high bandwidth and connections, and to experience video streaming. And as you're talking about this, I see this more of a kind of a long term, right? having in-car entertainment. As Jim said, I mean, latency and also bandwidth. There's a lot of data going on. It's also one of the most talked about use cases, like in-car entertainment. I'm not advising this, of course, but I mean, as we've seen this every day as well, self-driving cars and technology, it doesn't apply only to the driver, of course, in car entertainment, there's the passengers and all. But I mean, the more and more automated the vehicles get, the more attention and time and disposition there will be in a car also to consume content. And that's, I mean, we want to have our content everywhere we go. I want it. I want that. I definitely want. So on the house, you start watching on this big screen, you move, you continue watching on your mobile, wherever you're going. I mean, in your car, you're going on vacations, whatever. I mean, definitely reach and bandwidth. Those are definitely, there's a demand for it. Driving mainly from video, and definitely 5G plays a very, very, very big role there.
Okay. Thank you for that. Talking about self-driving cars, it seems it's all taking a bit longer than we thought. They've been hyped, and actually I was looking at getting one as well, but now with these energy prices, electricity, my bill will double in January. And it's been crazy around the globe in energy prices going up. So let's talk about that, the economic uncertainty. I hear from several of my telco customers that say our bill goes up by millions, tens of millions, or hundreds of millions, depending on how big the network is. So that is really an issue. I'd like to hear from you. So how do you think, how is it affecting the streaming and pay TV industry right now? There must be opportunities as well as the threats. Maybe Sergio, we start with you. So what impact do you see coming from the current economic climate?
Yeah, I agree with you, Andy. So definitely, I mean, times of uncertainty, it also means times of opportunity, right? There's also opportunity associated with this uncertainty. What I've seen, like in 2022, the OTT market in the US became larger, than cable and terrestrial TV for the first time. So, viewing preferences change, and people, yes, are looking for less costly entertainment options. So that causes an impact and challenges service providers, to look for other options, right? Because they can't stand still on their comfort zone, because their clients and their consumers are changing, what they're looking for and the behavior. I mean, it means that traditional pay TV operators, they need to focus on, how can they offer premium service with great content, and maybe looking at content aggregation, which we're seeing on some of our clients, trying to look on aggregation of these OTT services, so that they can keep the relationship with their clients and provide them these premium services and provide them great service that they always have been able to. We've seen this from many of our customers doing that, picking up multiple OTT platforms and bundling those, or conciliating those, aggregating it so that they can provide sometimes even a seamless experience to the end user, where the subscriber basically chooses the content. It doesn't really matter which OTT platform it comes from, right? Doesn't really matter for them. So that's a great experience and a great value. I mean, this is how some service providers have been challenging themselves to do, with agreements, and also with a lot of effort in terms of their applications, their user experience and all that. So OTT platforms, on the other hand, they also haven't been immune to this, right? So consumer behavior changes, looking to different options. I mean, they've responded with something that we've actually been talked about in quite some time, and it's also taking a little bit longer than it always is the case, right? It always technology is there, but then the market always takes a little bit longer than expected to explore the technology. I'm talking about ad tech. So, but OTT platforms, they definitely are more mature into it, and they're supporting they're supporting ad-supported streaming, to maintain growth, to keep healthy business cases and health financial ratios, whilst avoiding to have to charge the customer for their subscriber for more money, while reducing the impact to very low activities and deviations from what subscribers are used to. We're seeing these being introduced by big players like Netflix or Disney or DAZN. And definitely this is a trend that will continue in 2023.
Yeah. We saw that now Netflix scrambling to get out very fast, a fast package, so to say, advertising tiers. Everybody's going that. Yes, address economic segments that were not addressed before. But that's one way. I'm sure there are other new technologies that can help reduce content delivery cost and improve competitiveness. So, Jim, it's Christmas soon. I'm sure you have something up your sleeve, don't you?
Yeah. So, obviously, when we're talking about it, you mentioned costs and competitiveness, right? On the cost side, there are things from a tech standpoint. There are things operationally that could be done to try to improve the efficiency of platforms. And then on the other side, we're talking about, when you say improve competitiveness, it's how do you generate more revenue from every stream that you're delivering. And there's a technology that we had announced in 2022, was just called CDN Broker, and it's focused around multi-CDN switching. And what we're seeing is that, like, a lot of our customers are looking to expand their services. They're looking to branch out in terms of the number of customers that they can serve. So looking beyond the confines of their own private networks and saying, hey, we can compete against some of the OTT services and offer, their own OTT kinds of frameworks for some of their content. And in doing that, there's a need to leverage multiple types, multiple brands of CDN. Sometimes they're private CDNs like their own. Sometimes it's public CDNs like the Akamais and Limelights and Lumens of the world. And in other cases, they're also looking at leveraging open caching kinds of technology. So the idea of a multi-CDN switcher like CDN Broker is that it builds some intelligence into the CDN framework so that you can set business rules, right? And sometimes it's going to be cost-related business rules, or it may be quality-related, or there may be resiliency kinds of use cases for things where it's like, hey, if I'm doing service on my own private CDN, I want an alternate path to deliver streams to customers. But we see a lot of interest in this kind of intelligence that you can build into the CDN framework so that you can build out hybrid content delivery networks that give some choices to the operator, right? Sometimes it makes sense to if you've got event-based traffic like this World Cup stuff, there may be a reason to use to build additional capacity using third-party CDN capacity, and rather than building out your own private dedicated network. And so CDN switching, multi-CDN switching is an area in which we see a lot of interest around, how do we reduce cost and minimize some of the infrastructure spend that operators have, and it shifts some of the expense related to power and air conditioning, all those other things that are energy challenges to other parties that ultimately have to account for that. We see also a lot of interest, like operationally, we see a lot of interest in trying to squeeze the teams ultimately that are managing the platforms, or reduce the amount of work involved in managing and maintaining the content delivery platforms. And so we've been spending a lot of time on analytics and management tools and automation in order to try to improve, reduce the amount of effort that's involved in managing and maintaining systems as well.
Okay. One thing you mentioned is open caching. That was one of the predictions from last year. So let's check in on that one. How far has it gone? Is it taking off? Where are we on that one?
Yeah, so open caching is interesting. I mean, we see it. We see interest in the market with respect to open caching from a technology standpoint. I think the business models surrounding open caching are still developing, and the breadth of the need, right? Everybody, every CDN can communicate with every other CDN is the dream of open caching. And technologically that is viable. The question is where does the money change hands, right? Who's paying for what, and who benefits from connecting all these CDNs together? So we see some interest from customers in trying to sort that out, specific communications between content providers and service providers, and trying to connect that link. There are benefits on both sides there. We also see interest in wholesale CDN kinds of frameworks that don't leverage open caching. They're just like direct connects between content providers and the streaming networks themselves. And so it's still a developing market, an area where there could potentially be some growth. And we just see, it's a matter of the business deals that are going on behind the scenes to enable it, and something that we support within the context of our platform, and are working with customers to try to sort out those business cases.
Okay. I mean, one angle is the business case and saving money, but hey, what about saving our planet?
Yeah.
Right? We talked about energy crisis, high cost, but what can I do? I can optimize the cost, but can I also optimize the amount I need in the first place? Has there been a big shift, a small shift, a huge shift in the discussions you have to lead about sustainability, or that you proactively push? Has it really gained a lot of momentum?
Yeah, I think it's gaining momentum. I don't think we're there yet, right? In the sense that, sustainability has always been something that's been in customer RFPs, right? They've always put something in there because most of the telecommunications companies have some initiative with respect to trying to reduce their carbon footprint. And so from a vendor perspective, we support that, and we try to make sure that we're our products are efficient with respect to energy usage. But I have seen over the course of 2022 that what once was maybe not the number one priority in terms of the decision making, that it's been rising in priority as in terms of how decisions are made, and that there are more requirements coming in for measurement and progressive improvement with respect to energy usage. And some of that is driven by the fact that, you have this developing energy crisis and concerns about what's going to happen as time goes on. So I do think that it's an area that we, from a technology standpoint, have been spending a lot of time in trying to sort out, okay, what are the various things that we can do? And also, like, one of the key parts of this is making sure that we understand, like, what are the measurements? What are the things that we need to be tracking in order to make sure that we've made progress? If you can't measure it, you can't manage it, is a reasonable statement on this one, which is, where are we now? And where are we trying to get to from an efficiency standpoint? And what are those metrics that we universally, not just us, but the other vendors that are in the community, all are working toward a similar kind of metrics, and progressively moving forward on this particular topic.
So maybe, Sergio, you said you're in charge of analytics as one of the products you take care of. in Velocix. So what are some of the KPIs Jim just mentioned? And apart from analytics, what other technologies do really contribute to energy efficiency?
Yeah, so we do believe, as Jim said, I mean, it's picking up, but we're already seeing a lot of pushes and developments in terms of, being more having more of energy efficient platforms. It's not only on the hardware. Of course, the hardware is something that our hardware partners are also offering higher streaming output per watts and per rack units. Saving energy, and also we can look into cooling and warehousing costs. Some customers communicated to us that they are considering increasing the temperature of their data centers by 1 or 2 or 3 degrees. This represents a significant challenge on the efficiency of the underlying products and software that is running. I mean, the hardware is run at an optimal temperature, and then there could be some performance or even hardware malfunctions if such conditions are not maintained. So yeah, I mean, we have to look through the entire end-to-end chain here to understand where these improvements can be introduced, right? And as I said, not only on demanding from the hardware providers, to get better output per watt in terms of performance of the system, but also the software needs to evolve, to have like more advanced caching algorithms, as an example, on the CDNs. It's very, very important. I mean, if we can improve, even if it's slightly, for an example, the cache hit rates of the CDN, that will definitely mean a direct impact on the overall system performance, right? So we are spending significant R&D resources into optimizing, bringing technology to the latest generation, which not always is easy. I mean, it's very challenging in some of these software. I mean, you can't continuously be changing all the things you're doing, right? You need to add features, you need to maintain the software, but you also need to keep it up and have it on the latest generation, latest technology, evolving to the latest trend. Obviously, customers demand all of that, but resources are limited, and we need to choose our path carefully. And yeah, we're investing a lot of R&D resources into optimizing our algorithms, optimizing our components. We do have, on the CDN, hi-fi algorithms that really represent significant optimizations in terms of how the cache efficiency works and results to customers. I talked before, and Jim as well, on solutions that we believe are going to be, keep evolving next year. And hybrid cloud, as you mentioned, is a very good way to optimize the usage of these platforms. Obviously, these represent challenges, and applications like CDN broker will definitely play a significant role here, because we want to make sure that everything is orchestrated so that it is seamless to the subscriber. And I mean, leveraging on cloud for peak, for content, event-based, event-driven, it will be very valuable, and to act upon that usage and the demand that is going on. That's where analytics plays a very significant role, in getting real-time data into the systems, so that the systems can, it's not rocket science prediction. It's a matter of having the proper inputs, the proper data being fed into the systems, so that the systems can act once these thresholds are achieved, and to ensure that the capacity is really optimal. So you have enough capacity to, obviously you need to have some buffers, but you have enough capacity to serve current customers and quickly, scale down and scale up according to the requirements, according to the usage of the that you're getting. I mean, some of the use cases it's easy to predict, like recordings. They're pre-programmed. When you're gonna have a peak of recordings, for example. But other events, it's not as easy to predict, but you'll get this input, this data being fed into the systems, and systems can proactively provision more resources as that is required, and this will result into significant gains in terms of productivity, efficiency on these platforms.
Okay. Apropos scaling up, that was one of the things you said. Let's talk about the operators scaling up themselves. So size matters. I mean, there's a lot of M&A going on. People add countries, they buy a network here and add it there. The infrastructure is in the cloud, so everything is becoming global, including M&A. So how does that work? What's important to think about the globalization of video, whether that's on an M&A side, adding a network, going to the cloud? Jim, what is, if I want to go massive scale, what do I need to think about and keep in mind?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, we get that question at times. People are asking, why are you investing in cloud technologies and migrating your platforms toward some of the cloud underpinnings? And the rationale is exactly this, which is, we see operators looking to scale out. We see consolidation happening in the space. We see, an interest in running video streaming services across different environments, both, on net services and off net as well. And so the capabilities of cloud-enabled software is that you can run it in all of these different environments. So the ability to run across multi-cloud environments, multiple hardware environments, and so on, run it deep at the edge, run it, further back in the network, is all enabled through some of that investment in cloud-based technology. And so we see a lot of interest in that, right? I mean, we know that some of the ways that we traditionally have deployed software is on net, on dedicated hardware that is it's optimized really for the task at hand, and that will continue to have some advantages for folks that own their own networks. But we've got lots of people that are delivering video services today that don't own their own networks, and even the guys that do own their own networks are looking to extend the capabilities of their or the reach of their platforms beyond the confines of their own network. And so we see a lot of interest in that cloud capable software that can run in different environments and be easily managed as well across those different environments, so they don't look like totally separate platforms. Mm-hmm. And with that as well is multi-tenancy. So we have an example of a large customer that we have that had deployed a recording platforms, and initially they deployed them across a bunch of different countries, and each of them were independent, and we've seen a move to try to simplify that. And so we went back and created a multi-tenant cloud-based platform for them that allows them to run a singular instance of software that runs across many different regions, and there's some uniqueness to those regions, right? So even though you have a singular instance, you can have some diversity in terms of the way that the platforms run. But multi-tenancy is another one that, as we start to see services go global, there's interest not only in delivering their own services, but even opening up some of those platforms so that they can carry traffic from third parties as well. And so there's a lot of interest in that kind of stuff.
Okay. So that was for big operators, and I saw some names there on your first slide, but what about smaller operators? Does the move to cloud also make sense? So how can they benefit from the scalability? So is it also a valid point for smaller territories?
I guess it's a question for me.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, optimization and efficiency doesn't apply only to big players. Right? It applies to everyone generically. So even in smaller territories or smaller service providers, we're seeing, many of them are planning to boost their streaming capabilities on 2023. As they are launching new services and moving away from legacy video platforms, which more than often is actually limiting their capacity to offer new services. Once they move away from that limitation of the legacy platforms, I mean, they can explore new services, new offerings, and I mean that's gonna require boosting their capacity, boosting their platforms to be able to offer new new content and new services. So the discussion here is both on driving digital transformation and how can they leverage on cloud technology for that. But this depends a little bit on where where they are in terms of maturity. Some of them definitely, and we've seen this commonly, we're not gonna just throw away whatever is on-prem and moving everything to cloud. It may be the case. I mean, it really depends on the customer and what's actually they're trying to achieve. But they're very pragmatic. They know that there are economics still in favor of keeping on-premise content, but there's a real interest, and we're seeing movements already, on moving some of the technologies into cloud. We're seeing more a trend in hybrid than pure cloud, which will bring the best of both worlds into play, and both technologies working together. So really depends here on what customers will value more. But this is not just for the big players, definitely. I mean, there's room for optimization and exploring these new services, and often smaller players. It's not always the case. I mean, it's never 0 or 1, but smaller players can be more agile into moving to this new technology, and they can actually do it earlier and faster than big players.
Okay. Well, so there's value in for everybody, small or big. And I'm conscious of time. We could probably continue with more predictions, but we need to move to Q&A. And actually, I think we have time for one question from the audience, and we have one here from Swaroop Hiramath. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. That sounds Indian. I think it's from Infosys, as I quickly checked on LinkedIn. So is Velocix strategy a pure cloud strategy? And is cloud the future for CDN? Or that's my addition, or is there something hybrid? I don't know, maybe Jim, or you want to take that? So what is the CDN strategy for Velocix?
Yeah, it's absolutely hybrid. And the rationale for that is that's where we see the interest from customers is in hybrid solutions. So, there will be some operators that want to move entirely to cloud, or they don't own their own networks and they by default have to be a cloud provider. And so in those circumstances, yeah, we're a pure cloud provider to those customers. But most of our customer base does own their own network of some sort, whether it's a mobile network or it's a wireline cable network or a telco network. And so for those operators, I think there's interest in trying to figure out where is the economic balance and where are the advantages in cloud. And so that's really the discussion is like, okay, we're not going to move everything to the cloud. There are reasons that's going to be economically today, it's going to be more expensive to do that if you're running full-time traffic from cloud environments. And that will evolve over time, right? But it's like anything, this is a trend line. We're seeing the more aggressive operators be more aggressive toward cloud adoption, and some folks that are taking a wait and see approach and saying, I'm going to wait. I'll let everybody else try this out first and see. Let's see whether this trend takes hold. We fit somewhere in the middle in the sense that we do think there are advantages to cloud for certain types of traffic and certain types of services. And the things that we're infusing into our platform is the intelligence to try to figure out what is the right balance. When do we use those resources, and how do we keep the costs low, quality high, keep the systems as reliable as possible.
And I'll also add, let me just add, I mean, I'll also add, this will, one size doesn't fit all, of course, as Jim was saying. I'll also add, it's important to understand where are the pain points on our customers. Some will be on the operational side, some may be on different areas of their business. And this is also a very important input to decide how they're going to move, how they're going to guide their cloud strategy. So it really depends on the maturity level they're on, the skill set they own, the pain points they have. I mean, it's definitely hybrid, and it's definitely an effort and an exercise of balancing what makes sense for their business, what makes sense for their operations.
Okay, great. We have 3 minutes left. So Jim, it's Christmas soon. You know my favorite questions. I give you $100 million. What do you do with it? Quick, in 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, we are an acquirer. It may not be obvious, but we're an acquirer of technology, and so we are part of a larger group of companies focused on media and communications. And so, I mean, we have access to those kinds of funds to go and acquire. So, those are the kinds of things that we would go out and do. We see a lot of activity in the media and communication space. There are a lot of communications companies that are complementary to some of the things that we do. So that's what we do. We're committed to the space. We're committed to innovation in the space, and we're out looking. So that's definitely something that we'd be focused on. Yeah,
that sounds great. And we just saw, so I add that missing piece, Lumin Group, that's your mother company, has just recently acquired Wiz TV from France.
Correct.
So yes, let's stay tuned for more to come.
Yeah.
Great. So we have to wrap it up. Thank you, Sérgio. Thank you, Jim, for being with us today just before Christmas. And I want to wrap it up. So wish all of the two of you, but also you, dear audience, Merry Christmas. All the best for the new year. Maybe see some of you at CES or at the next event or our next session here. We'll definitely come back before MWC. Jim, Sérgio, thank you. It was great. Here you see the email addresses of the two gentlemen. If you have other questions that we couldn't get to, sorry for the time, send an email. We'll get back to you. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you very much for being with us. All the best and Merry Christmas. And see you soon.
Andy. Thanks, everyone. Always a pleasure to participate in your events. Bye-bye.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.